The voicemail from my mother was the final straw. Her voice, sharp, a familiar blend of disappointment and accusation, cut through the post-wedding bliss like a shard of ice. "We hope you're happy, Sophia. You've humiliated this family beyond repair. To think our own daughter would be so selfish." I deleted it, my hand trembling not with guilt, but with a long-suppressed fury. They hadn't been at my wedding to David, and the world hadn't ended. In fact, it was the most perfect day of my life, precisely because they weren't there to orchestrate it around my brother, Daniel. The fallout had been immediate and vicious. My phone had blown up not with congratulations, but with a torrent of angry texts and missed calls from my parents. They weren't TT upset about missing my walk down the aisle. They were livid about the social shame. The extended family, finally seeing the blatant favoritism for what it was, had turned on them. My parents' tone was desperate, more frantic than I'd ever heard. They were scrambling, trying to paint me as a villain, the ungrateful daughter who had deliberately excluded her sensitive brother. Their arguments were a masterclass in manipulation. According to them, I had failed in my familial duty. I should have been more understanding of Daniel's social anxiety. I should have consulted him on the guest list, the music, the color scheme, anything to ensure he was comfortable. Their audacity was breathtaking. They claimed I had caused an irreparable rift by proceeding with the wedding without them, as if my marriage was a minor family meeting they'd chosen to skip. They tried every trick in their arsenal, guilt-tripping me about the money they'd spent on my upbringing, a fraction of what they'd lavished on Daniel, bringing up ancient, irrelevant grievances from my teenage years, and painting a picture of a heartless daughter who had torn the family asunder for her own selfish whims. But for the first time, their words lost their power over me. I wasn't that quiet, bookish girl anymore, desperately seeking a crumb of their approval. I was a woman who had built her own life, brick by brick, without their help. I was done feeling guilty for wanting one day, just one day, to be about me and the man I loved. My wedding day was everything I had ever dreamed of and nothing they'd ever offer me. Pure, unadulterated joy, laughter that echoed without restraint, and love that felt solid and real. It was a day I would cherish forever, a testament to my choice to put myself first. So, Reddit, was I the one in the wrong for getting married without my parents and refusing to cater to my brother's every whim? Thank you all for the overwhelming support. Reading your comments has been a cathartic experience. I've always felt the imbalance in my family, but having thousands of strangers validate my feelings has been incredibly empowering. Many of you asked for more background on Daniel and why my parents are the way they are. So here it is. Growing up, Daniel was diagnosed with a learning disability that made school difficult for him. My parents, especially my mother, reacted by wrapping him in cotton wool. Every stumble was catastrophe. Every minor setback proof that the world was too harsh for him. They justified their constant coddling by telling me, "Daniel needs us more. You're the strong one, Sophia. You can handle anything." And I believed them. I learned to be independent, to solve my own problems, to never ask for help. But as we got older, it became clear their help was a curse in disguise. Daniel never learned resilience. He never learned to cope with disappointment or take responsibility for his actions. He flunked out of 2 colleges, not because he wasn't capable, but because he never showed up for exams, knowing my parents would call the dean and make excuses. He's had a string of dead-end jobs, never lasting more than a few months before he quits or gets fired, always with a dramatic story about a cruel boss or jealous coworkers. My parents are always their cushion to fall, paying his rent, his bills, his endless stream of emergencies. I, on the other hand, have never asked them for a dime. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through university. I remember eating instant noodles for a month straight to afford my textbooks, all while listening to my parents complain about the cost of Daniel's latest therapy fad. Not real therapy, mind you, but things like life coaching and energy healing. They see my stability as proof that I don't need them. What they don't see are the sleepless nights, the anxiety, the quiet loneliness of knowing you are an afterthought in your own family. They don't realize that the strong one needs a shoulder to lean on sometimes. 2. A few days after the wedding, Daniel sent me a text. He said he was deeply wounded, that he wasn't made a groomsman, and that I hadn't chosen a song for our sibling dance. The sheer self-absorption was staggering. He genuinely believed my wedding should have had segments dedicated to celebrating our relationship. I started to type out a long, detailed response, explaining a lifetime of hurt, but I stopped. I deleted the draft. I simply don't have the energy to dissect my feelings for someone who only ever sees his own reflection. David has been my rock. He holds me when the guilt tries to creep back in, and reminds me that I don't owe anyone an explanation for my happiness. Your family, he says, is the one you choose, and I choose you every single day. His unwavering support has been the anchor I needed. My parents continue their campaign, leaving long, rambling voicemails. Each buzz of my phone is a tiny pinprick of anxiety, but I'm learning to ignore it. I'm taking this time to focus on my new marriage. David and I are planning a quiet honeymoon in the mountains, far away from the noise and drama. This whole ordeal has been a painful but necessary wake-up call. I'm learning to set boundaries, to prioritize my own peace, and to finally understand that my worth isn't determined by their approval. It's a difficult journey, but for the first time, it feels like I'm heading in the right direction. I finally agreed to meet my parents. A part of me, the little girl still yearning for their love, hoped we could finally have an honest conversation. I didn't expect an apology, but I hoped for a glimmer of understanding, a crack in the wall of their denial. Before the meeting, I got a call from my aunt, my mother's sister, Maria. She's always been the straight shooter in the family. She said, "Sophia, there are things you need to know. Your parents live in a bubble, and it's time it popped." What she told me left me feeling cold and numb. A few years back, Daniel had gotten close to Maria's son, my cousin Michael. Michael is a successful graphic designer with a great circle of friends. Daniel, seeing an opportunity, latched on. He started by borrowing Michael's car for quick errands that turned into weekend road trips. He'd show up at Michael's apartment uninvited and help himself to his expensive whiskey and tech gadgets. But the real betrayal was professional. Michael was working on a huge project for a major client. Daniel, who had dabbled in some basic design software, convinced Michael to let him help with some minor elements. Instead, Daniel went behind his back, contacted the client directly, and tried to undercut Michael's proposal, claiming he could do a better job for half the price. He botched the presentation so badly, the client almost dropped Michael entirely. It took months for Michael to repair the damage to his reputation and his finances. Hearing this, any lingering doubt I had vanished. Daniel wasn't just a pampered golden child. He was a destructive force, willing to sabotage his own family for a sliver of attention. I didn't plan to use this information as a weapon, but it steeled my resolve. I walked into that cafe, prepared for battle. The meeting was a disaster from the start. They weren't alone. Daniel was with them, slumped in a chair, wearing the expression of a martyred saint. My mother's first words weren't hello or how are you? They were, how could you do this to us? To your brother? They launched into a rehearsed tirade. They were shocked and devastated by my betrayal. They accused me of being cruel for not considering Daniel's fragile mental state during the wedding planning. My father said, "You know how hard large crowds are for him. Sophia, you should have had a smaller, more intimate ceremony for his sake." I tried to interject, to explain that my wedding was about David and me, not a therapeutic event for Daniel. but my words were drowned out by their chorus of condemnation. When I finally managed to voice my own pain, when I spoke about a childhood being overlooked, of Christmases where my gifts were practical, while Daniel got extravagant toys, of graduations they missed because Daniel had a crisis, they became defensive. "We did the best we could," my mother cried. "Daniel needed us. You were always so capable, so independent. We never had to worry about you." That's the problem. I shot back, my voice shaking. "You never chose to worry about me. You never chose to see me." The final straw came when my mother, with tears in her eyes, said, "If you truly loved your family, you would have postponed the wedding until Daniel was in a better place. Your impatience has torn us apart." Daniel then added his 2 cents, his voice a whiny simper. "You never even asked me what I wanted, Sophia. You just excluded me. It felt like you were punishing me for being different." That's when I snapped. The image of my cousin Michael, heartbroken and nearly bankrupt because of this man, flashed in my mind. I looked at my parents. Their faces set in identical masks of righteous indignation, and I unleashed everything Aunt Maria had told me. I detailed the car, the whiskey, the attempted professional sabotage. I didn't spare a single detail. For a moment, there was silence. My parents stared at me, stunned. Daniel looked down, a faint blush creeping up his neck. I saw a flicker of doubt in my father's eyes. Maybe, just maybe, the truth had broken through. But the moment passed. My mother was the first to recover. That is a vicious lie," she spat. "Michael has always been jealous of Daniel. And now you're conspiring with him, trying to turn us against our own son." My father, his initial shock fading, nodded in agreement. "Yes, Sophia, that sounds very exaggerated. Daniel told us about that misunderstanding. It was a simple business disagreement. Michael overreacted. They refused to believe it. They chose the comfortable lie over the painful truth. And in that moment, something inside me shattered and then almost instantly solidified. The weight of a lifetime of seeking their validation lifted, leaving me feeling terrifyingly light and free. The fog cleared. I saw them with perfect, painful clarity. Two people so deeply invested in their narrative of being the saviors of a troubled son that they were willing to sacrifice their daughter on that altar. I stood up. "I'm done," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I have spent my entire life begging for scraps of your attention. I built a life without you. I got married without you. And I will be happy without you. You have made your choice, and it has never been me. Don't contact me again." I walked out of that cafe and didn't look back. The grief was there, a sharp, real pain in my chest, but it was overshadowed by a profound sense of liberation. The cord was cut. I was finally completely free. Hello, everyone. I wanted to offer a final update, one that I never thought I'd be able to write. David and I have settled into a wonderful, peaceful life. The silence from my family was, after a time, no longer a source of pain, but a blessing. I focus on my work, on my marriage, on building a home filled with the love and respect I had always craved. I had truly given up hope and had made my peace with it. Then, about a month ago, my father emailed me. It was short, awkward, and utterly unexpected. It simply said, "Sophia, I know I have no right to ask, but if you're willing, I would like to talk. There are things I need to say. No conditions. Your choice." My initial instinct was to delete it. David, ever the voice of reason, encouraged me to listen. "You don't have to forgive him," he said, "but you've always wanted the truth. Maybe he's finally ready to offer it." I met him at a public park, a neutral territory. He looked older, more tired than I remembered. The bluster was gone. He didn't make excuses. He started by saying, "I was wrong, Sophia, about everything." He told me that after our last meeting, he'd started paying attention. He'd quietly reached out to Aunt Maria and Michael. He'd listened to their stories, not as attacks on Daniel, but as accounts of what had actually happened. He'd also heard from other relatives about incidents he'd previously dismissed, borrowed money never repaid, petty lies, manipulated situations. The pattern was undeniable. The scales fell from my eyes, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I saw how he had created a monster. We thought we were protecting him, but we were crippling him. And in the process, we lost you. We failed you in every way a parent can fail a child. I am so sorry. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He said he knew that was a privilege he hadn't earned. He admitted that my mother was still entrenched in her denial, still fiercely protecting Daniel, who was now living at home, unemployed and blaming the world for his problems. My father said he was starting couples counseling alone because my mother refused to go. I don't expect a relationship, he said, but I wanted you to know that I see you now. I see the strong, incredible woman you became not because of us, but in spite of us, and I am prouder of you than I have words for. I cried. He cried. It wasn't a magical fix. The years of hurt don't vanish with one apology, but it was a start, a genuine, humble, long overdue start. Since that day, we've been slowly, cautiously, building a new relationship. We have coffee every other week. We talk about books, his woodworking hobby, my job. We don't talk about my mother or Daniel. It's a boundary he respects without question. It's a fragile thread, but it's real. The story doesn't have a fairy tale ending. My mother and Daniel are not part of my life, and I doubt they ever will be. That chapter is closed. But a new, unexpected one has begun with my father. It's a relationship based on truth and present effort, not on the ghosts of the past. My life with David is my anchor, my joy. And now, there's a tentative, hopeful connection where there was once only a void. The little girl inside me hasn't been completely healed, but she's finally being heard. And for now, that is more than enough. Thank you, all of you, for being my compass through the storm. Your support helped me find the strength to demand better for myself. And in doing so, I finally made room for this fragile, beautiful possibility of peace.